How is the current climate of like import exports going to affect the RV industry? Is it going to affect the RV industry in terms of new RV pricing? If so, when is that going to happen? And a bunch of other things that I've been able to dig up for you in this month's RV Industry Update. My name is Josh the RV Nerd. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get into it. Kicking us off, the RV industry is projecting about a 5% increase in total shipments this year. That is far more, I think, realistic than some of the previous stats that I've seen. I think coming into last year, RVIA, the RV Industry Association, they were projecting something like a 14% increase, which didn't quite pan out. I think 5% potential increase in shipments is maybe a more realistic thing. The industry is offering what they're calling a cautiously optimistic look at this year, but they have mentioned that, you know, things like interest rates potentially stagnating will continue to be a challenge that works against this. Interestingly, the largest sector of growth is actually projected in the motorhome segment, which has seen 2 to 3 consecutive years of just some massive losses. So potentially a little bit of a rebound within the motorized industry this year. For the most part, it looks like towable stuff is probably going to just continue to take care of itself. But probably the biggest topic I'll provide you on this video is what to expect this year, this calendar year, for new RV pricing. Now, it will be handled a little bit differently by different manufacturers. There are some brands where every single time they build a batch of things, they snapshot the cost of the invoice at that time. That gets passed to the dealer, that gets passed to you, and gets finally reflected in the price tag in more of a real-time fashion. But there are a lot of manufacturers who are well aware of the fact that the cost of a lot of materials, given the climate of a lot of things, has gone up recently here. And there's a few brands that are doing their best to try to combat that for as long as they can. Recently got a letter straight from Keystone, and they're not the only ones that are going to be adopting a policy like this. They're just the first one that I saw, so it's the first one that came to mind, where they basically said, look, we know, they were talking to their dealers in this letter. They said, we know that your customers need to have some kind of realistic expectation, reliable expectation of pricing, because how can you expect a customer to place an order for an RV not knowing exactly how much it's going to cost when it lands, which is exactly what was happening during the pandemic period. But I appreciate that they're trying not to repeat that. So basically what Keystone said is up until the release of the 2026s, they're effectively locking and freezing pricing. And if something goes up in the meantime, they're pretty much going to eat it. But come about June, because June is when the 2026 models are going to start coming out from manufacturers this year. By the end of June, the majority of all 26 updates should be complete. By June, they're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of a 4 to 8% price increase. Now, it might vary a little bit depending on the materials and features, etc., that are employed on a specific RV, but a significant price increase is probably coming later this year. Now, something to keep in mind when that happens, and again, it's probably going to be primarily around June that we see the biggest influx of that happening this year. But when that happens, that does not technically have any bearing on any RV that's already in stock at a place. So when the 26s come out, all the 25s technically become 25 holdovers, and there's probably still 2024 holdovers, and in some cases, maybe even older RVs still new in stock sitting around. The cost of those didn't go up. But there are some dealers that will operate based on replacement cost and not invoice cost. And they'll say, yeah, but if I sell that, it's going to cost me this much more to replace it. So that's how much you're going to have to pay me. Just remember that as a consumer, you always have a choice of where you can take your business. And there's plenty of places that don't practice that way. So the question, this kind of begs the question, when is the best time to buy an RV? I've always felt the best time to purchase an RV is always when you're ready, when it makes sense. Don't feel pressured. Don't feel scared or spooked into it. It's when you're ready. That's the best time to do it, because that's when you're probably going to use it the most and enjoy it the most. And why spend this kind of money if it's something that you won't use and won't enjoy? That's stupid. I also discovered that there are some new interesting 12-volt solutions kind of potentially coming to more of the North American RV marketplace. If you look at European, Australian caravans, RVs, or they call them caravans, we call them RVs, 12-volt water heaters and air conditioners are extremely common in those areas, but they haven't really caught on a lot here in North America. But there are a few instances, one of which I discovered recently, and this is not the only one, but there's a company called OzJ Hot Water Solutions or something like that, is beginning US-based distributorship for a 12-volt DC water heater. This is, it's a smaller capacity water heater versus the ones that we tend to run around with here in the States, which is usually a 6-gallon. I think this is like a 2.76-gallon water heater vessel or something like that. But it is something that could be battery powered, your 12-volt system, battery powered. It also, interestingly read, or solar powered, as though it has the capacity to be directly run by a solar panel on a sunny day. I haven't verified into all that. I'm not an expert on this system or anything, but this company also offers things like 12-volt DC air conditioner solutions and stuff like that. Now, don't expect most of these manufacturers to jump on this bandwagon. My estimation, for two reasons. One, I'm going to guess these new 12-volt systems are probably more costly, so you're not going to see them on like a basic stick and tin camper like the thing over my shoulder here. But also the fact that I'm going to guess that their ability to fulfill massive volume by big mainstream high volume manufacturers might be a bit of a trick. So it's something that might be out there, might be available. I thought this could be some cool information for those folks that kind of like to DIY or update old RVs or something like that. But it is an interesting indication. It seems like whenever I see stuff like this, a year or two or three after I start to see things like this, you start to see more of it and more of it trickling into the mainstream industry as the appliances are tested, vetted, and the confidence builds in them. And I'd be very curious. What do you think about the idea of a 12-volt DC water heater? And it seems like there's more and more and more push to 12-voltifying the RV industry, whether it's been refrigerators or whatnot. I feel like it's another thing where the boondockers go, God, please, not more stuff that saps my battery. But maybe it's an energy efficient, manageable enough system. I'm not sure. What do you guys think about that? And on this channel, I have made absolutely no secret and never minced words about the fact that getting timely, effective RV service is one of, if not the single greatest challenges, the biggest hurdle out there in the RV industry today. Which is one thing working toward the benefit of this is that RVTI, the RV Technical Institute, recently released this map that effectively shows you what businesses have the employment of RV Technical Institute certified technicians. Now, I'll leave you a link for that down in the video description, like you're looking at a little sample of the map over here, obviously. But keep in mind that there are more than one organization out there. There is more than one organization, that sounds more correct, offering RV tech certifications. This is only one of them, but if you are trying to find a place that gives you more peace of mind and confidence you think is going to more effectively get you back up and running, this might be a good place to start. And I hope we continue to see more of this and more communication out there to more customers. I also think it's really cool that it gives you an idea of what locations are actually investing in service and not just sales within their organizations. And I've always thought that's a really good way to determine the culture of a place that you might be purchasing an RV from. So this might be some really interesting RV purchase intel. And yeah, apparently we got some Pink Floyd playing out here. Hopefully that I don't get dinged for a copyright thing on that, but never mind. Sorry, back to the point. RV manufacturers often don't get any sort of credit when it comes to service training. I think the general vibe out there, the general feeling from the average consumer market is that RV manufacturers don't care about what they build and they don't care about who they build them for. They just want to build the next one and sell the next one. And There's enough black eyes out there that I understand how that sentiment was earned, but there are some brands that I do think are trying to invest in the service side of the industry. And two tips of the cap I think are due right now to KZ and Jayco RV. They both have some level of like annual tech service training, where basically what they do is they get a whole bunch of their suppliers like RXL, Coleman, Lippert, Xantrex, the companies that supply the parts that go into these things. Basically, they get the brain children behind those companies together. They invite technicians in from pretty much any of the dealerships that sell those products, and they train those techs on this specific ins and outs of the components that go on those RVs. You're thinking, why doesn't every manufacturer do this? Doesn't every manufacturer do this? No, the answer is no. Most of them do not. Most of the service people in the RV industry are flying totally blind, and they have to figure this stuff out as they encounter it. It's kind of a tricky situation for them. KZ actually has year-round courses where they constantly have a lot of different tech training going on, which I think is interesting. The company that has year-round training courses has a long-standing record of a gold-level DSI service award, so I don't think that's coincidence. Similarly, Jayco has pretty much the same record right there, where they have basically 6 week-long courses spread out throughout the year around different areas of the nation, so that they can get big batches of technicians from their different dealerships all kind of in the room at one time, with the goal of not like, how do we sell the next one, but how do we take care of the person that has already purchased an RV. And things like that, those training courses, there's a lot of expense into those things. So I like it when an RV manufacturer actually invests in the dealerships and directly in the customers like that, versus just what widget can we slap on this thing to make it sell another one. Now, something happened that I have kind of mixed emotions about. Basically, the de minimis rule was taken away and then reinstated. And this is this is kind of a footnote in the whole tariffs conversation, effectively. But the de minimis rule basically says that shipments valued under $800 are exempt from like import tariffs, things like that. Now, it was taken away briefly. The thing is, not just the RV industry, but definitely the RV industry takes advantage of this to a great deal. Sometimes suppliers will ship multiple batches of things in smaller quantities to slide in under this, and that is effectively a loophole that is exploited, and that sounds awful, and I don't like that. That's the part that I don't like. But what I do like is that it does mean the final product, the cost is reduced because the cost of the widget going onto it was not as much as it otherwise could have been. There are some companies like like Amazon stuff. There's a bunch of these like storage warehouses just outside of U.S. borders that are designed to be able to quickly bring stuff in and fulfill it fast without any sort of tariff import cost. And it's like I said, I got mixed emotions on it, but the fact is that is a factor that is working toward keeping RV pricing in check to some degree this year. So anything that helps keep costs managed, I think is a good thing, especially when we already know, for the most part, later this year, they are really only in a couple months, the hard replacement cost of an RV is going to go up. And shifting gears, although still somewhat related to legislative stuff, the state of Indiana is looking to join essentially now about half of all other states in the United States in adopting RV-specific franchising laws. And the biggest thing that this benefits consumers out there is that it establishes like specific service areas for like warranty, not necessarily warranty, like recall purposes. So there could be instances where somebody bought an RV that had a recall, and even though they bought it right in their hometown there in Indiana, if there was a recall, the dealer could have said, well, we didn't do it wrong, go talk to the manufacturer, and they would just brush the customer off. As awful as that sounds, you're like, well, how would they stay in business? I don't know, but they do. That was an annoying practice, not just in the state of Indiana, but in a lot of states. Now, only 2 years ago, almost none of these franchising laws actually existed for the RV industry. And in only a couple years, like once the first state crossed the line, a bunch of other states said, take that legislation, take that bill, copy and paste. And it is still just a bill up on Capitol Hill down in Indiana, if you remember your Schoolhouse Rock. But I'll be shocked if this doesn't end up passing, because it's just they've shown where it's been working in so many other states. And again, what it gives you is, like, you purchase your RV from someone, they have a local service area for brand XYZ. I just happen to be in front of a Coachman here. So you buy a Coachman Freedom Express right from a dealer in your backyard. If there's a recall, that dealer will be required to get that fulfilled on the manufacturer's behalf, which is something they weren't necessarily required to do before, which sounds asinine. But hopefully this continues, and I'll be a lot happier when we get to all 50 states like that and continue to see improvements on that side of things. Frankly, my opinion, way frickin' overdue. One other quick clarity thing, just because I'm from Michigan and I'm right next to Indiana, so I heard a little bit more about this. There was a little bit of hullabaloo about the fact that this bill would ban the completion of a sale of an RV on a Sunday. Like, you could still look at an RV, you could still place money down on an RV on a Sunday, but you couldn't complete the purchase on a Sunday. This is nothing new. Technically, in the state of Indiana, you've never been able to complete the purchase of an RV on a Sunday unless it is at something like a multi-dealer event, aka an RV show, where there's more than one RV dealership. Technically, none of that is changing, and a lot of that, I think, has been misreported. And I don't know, maybe it helped to give somebody some clarity. So I wanted to provide that. And some really interesting stats recently. RVIA did some surveys, and they found that basically 72 million Americans were planning on some kind of RV trip this year. That is a lot of travel. That is up like over 7% from only a couple years ago when it was like 64 million. The thing, this number, I wish I could get better clarity on it. Maybe somebody can help fill in the blanks for me. Maybe there's a thing I missed. But there's like 15 million registered RVs, 72 million people camping. I'm thinking, like, if you have a home with a family of four, all four of those people are counting in that 72 million number. And you're thinking, with only 15 million RVs, how could 72 million people camp? Well, a lot of people rent and or borrow. They don't just exclusively purchase. So one RV might be able to service more than one household, potentially multiple times through a year. About a third of it was planned to be completed by spring break, so expect a lot of RVs on the highways come spring break time, potentially towed by a lot of people that don't know what they're doing. So when you do see somebody towing an RV, it's always a good practice to give them a fair berth, but especially springtime. There might be a bunch of people out there that don't know what they're doing. They might be all around the road a little bit. Give them a little bit of extra space. Don't follow them too awful close. Another interesting thing is about 25% of the leisure RV people said they were considering a purchase this year. That number also up from previous years, potentially fueling some sales, potentially supporting that estimation RVIA had that we might be looking at about 5% more shipments this year. Another interesting thing that came out of the survey is that people are looking to travel further with their RVs this year, saying that they were looking at destinations somewhere around 7 to 15 hours away from their home. That is, that's up quite, I think that's up like 20-25% itself right there. I will tell you, I do tend to camp casually, and I do tend to camp locally. And if I'm going to be more than about 2.5 hours away, I do tend to hop on a plane just to go somewhere myself. But everybody camps differently, and I think that's very cool. I would be kind of curious, what is the furthest you would say you're willing to travel to an RV-based destination? Now, I'm from Michigan, so if you ask me how far, I answer you in time. Like, if someone says, how far is Lansing, Michigan from Coldwater, I say about an hour. I don't say this many miles. So whether it's miles or hours, how far would you be willing to travel for an RV destination at maximum? Now, some good news for RV renters or potential first-time buyers. If you follow my advice, you know that I actually recommend renting or borrowing an RV before you buy your first RV. Actually, if you'd like to learn, I've got a whole video right here. I'll leave you a link in the description, some tips for first-time RV buyers. And my number one is don't buy the RV first. And considering I come from an RV sales-based organization, that kind of makes some people's heads explode. But I think that before you spend this kind of money buying an RV first, you should try RVing first for only a couple $100. Well, Go RV Rentals has put out some stats here, and it's interesting. Apparently, despite various inflationary factors, cost of RV rentals has remained nearly completely flat over the last couple years, currently averaging about $184 a night for an RV rental. That is up only $1 from 2 years ago. So essentially exactly the same as what it was 2 years ago, still renting an RV. Now, if you take a look at these numbers over here, you can see that the cost per night does vary a little bit by the type of RV you're looking to potentially take home. There are sometimes some RVs may have an additional surcharge if they have a generator or generator hour charges or something like that. But overall, it's really interesting to me. It seems like if you're going to be a very, very casual RVer, potentially going the route of an RV rental may be more in your advantage versus going to a straight RV purchase. And again, I hope you appreciate that we're willing to share that, because, I mean, if we don't sell them here, we don't make money. And I don't know if you're aware of this. It's kind of all over my clothes where I work, you know. That's how we make our income. But we persist in what we call the relentless pursuit of transparency. And if you appreciate how our goal is just to provide a purely informational service to you with these videos, maybe hit that like button to help spread the message, or share it into your favorite social groups or something like that. And in the meantime, let's just keep on cruising. And I got a question for existing RV owners out there. Have you found your RV's USB plugs have been too slow charging to be useful? This is one of those kind of fairly unrealized, I think, problems with the RV industry. For the longest time, it didn't take a whole lot to like just charge up your phone, and a USB plug to charge up your phone in an RV seemed like an unnecessary but pleasant luxury. But the way RVs are being used is changing. More on that in just a few minutes here. The fact is, more people are using more devices that need more USB charging solutions. And frankly, even a bunch of newer smartphones need a more powerful charger to be effectively charged. There's also, the bigger laptops. There's a lot of people I see in my videos like, I don't need a TV in an RV. If I watch anything, I just watch off my laptop and I stream everything, okay? There's that. There's like my personal laptop charges off a USB Type-C plug, and a normal phone charging plug in an RV sofa armrest typically is not going to give it enough juice to make any significant difference. You know, technically charging, yes, but nothing that actually really moves the needle. Well, that is slowly changing. The problem is there's very little documentation out there about this. It's almost one of those things. What I would recommend when you are RV shopping, especially if you are that digital nomad or home away from home schooling situation, bring a couple devices with you. Ask to get the RV powered up. Let the device get, don't have it at 100% power when you get there. And trust me, the kids are good at draining the juice on those things before you get there. But get your device down to like 50%. Plug it in for 10 minutes and track how much different RV plugs in the RV charge stuff up. That might be a really handy feature for you to be aware of as you go making that final purchase decision. There are new fast charging USB solutions becoming available into the RV industry right now. Some charging as much as 36 to even 60 watts, which is awesome, in both USB type A and C sort of solutions. But the problem is, this is one of those things that the average person doesn't know, that not all USB plugs are made the same, nor do they know how to discern the difference. Now, I'm not saying you got to walk around with a multimeter and plug it into these things, like get a voltmeter on this sucker to check it. That's why I recommend just bringing your normal charging cables, plug the stuff in, and see how it performs. This is something that's going to start getting better again with time, but you will always probably find the dollar cheaper budget brands are probably always going to have lower power USB plugs than some of the premium things, but it's not a guarantee that if you pay more for the RV, you get faster charging. So it'll be one of those things to, if you are that roaming nomad, make sure you put that on your radar. And it's kind of a measure twice, buy once situation, but keep an eye on it, because this is going to start getting better, because the way people are working from RVs and homeschooling from RVs is changing, and it is on the upswing, and it doesn't appear to be changing. Some recent owner demographic surveys indicated that about 22% of existing RV owners either do or have done some level of remote work. Whether they're a full-time remote work person, or they are able to spend X amount of time working remotely and not necessarily in a brick and mortar situation. What's interesting is the stats on that are a little bit different from towable versus motorized. Motorized owners, a little bit more likely, 29% of them reporting that they do some level of remote working, versus towable owners, 21%. Now, if you just look at those two numbers, you're like, how is it 22% overall? Because of the number of towable owners versus motorized, it does skew that number close down to the 22% overall. It was also interesting that of those people who have worked, who do own RVs and can work remotely, 54% of them, over half, reported doing some level of work remotely. Now, it could be a situation where while they're, on their RV trip, they are working full-time out of the RV. It could also be a thing where they have to check in 30 minutes a day to keep up on their updates. Like, technically, I'm a person that does qualify for remote working. I've got a family vacation coming up, and I'm going to be standing in line at a theme park on my cell phone answering YouTube comments, because that's what it takes to get the job done. And the company doesn't make me do that, by the way. I do that. So it's not like Bish is cracking a whip on my back. That's just, I love and appreciate my audience, and I like to stay in touch with you, and I don't like to leave you feeling like you were left on call waiting. So I try to provide timely service where I can, because the person watching the video, when they ask a question, they have the expectation they're getting an answer. They don't know that I'm on vacation. They just think I'm ignoring them, and I don't like that. So anyway, this all begs the question, though, like things like the faster charging USB plugs or whatever. I would be really curious if you're an existing remote RV worker, or if you are looking at that kind of lifestyle. This is some information I would really like to get back to the RV manufacturers. What features, what qualities do you think RVs are generally lacking, considering 1 out of 5 RV owners is looking to do some work from the road, according to this survey? What features are 1 out of 5 RVs missing that would be beneficial for the remote working and or education lifestyle? And a little consumer protection kind of buyer beware suggestion right here. With the cost of RVs and repairs continuing to go up, finding a budget solution for replacement parts seems like a really good idea. The trick is, if you start getting on, I'm not trying to bash Amazon, they have nothing specifically to do with this, but if you get on Amazon or just order from an online retailer, sometimes the origin of replacement parts is a little bit murky. And some of the things that have been happening out there, like I saw this company who makes electrical components for RVs recently put out this big thing saying that basically there was this company who would make parts that were compatible with or equivalent replacement for their brand and their part, and even shared their part number. The problem is, this part was not made by the original company and didn't meet their safety standards. Like, their battery disconnect switches were not actually fully disconnecting power, nor were they even locking off. They could vibrate and lock, or basically turn themselves back on while you were towing down the road. And some of these things were made so poorly, they were potentially fire hazards. So basically, the best suggestion is start by taking a look at the reviews, but make sure you look at more than just, here's a 4.3 star rating. It is it's painfully exceptionally easy on some of those online retailer platforms to basically fluff the numbers and just pad a bunch of crappy, not real 5-star reviews in there. And these platforms have tools to try to combat that, but they're not really hard to work around, frankly. The other thing is, make sure you actually read some of the reviews. And what I like to do when I'm really looking to spend serious money on something, or if it's a component that if it goes down would completely cripple my RVing vacation experience, I will click through. I try to read a couple of the 5, a couple like the 4 stars, and then a couple of the 1-star reviews. And I try to see if I can identify what looks like real, what looks like fluff, what looks like trends. That takes just a little bit of eyeball doing though. But when in doubt, just try to stick with the name brand replacement, the straight replacement for the thing that you originally had or something like that. Because if something says it's compatible with, it never seems to want to work exactly the same. So just a little bit of caveat emptor in there, buyer beware. Use your head. Remember, you're always rolling those dice a little bit, but I like to roll in a way where the house doesn't seem like it's always gonna win. You know what I mean? I like to try to hedge the bets in my favor. One of those big mega headache replacement tasks also maybe just got a little bit easier. If you have a situation where you are in need of an axle replacement, or if you are trying to just perform service work on something that's older, or like there's people who like to do I'm gonna build my own camper out of a thing kind of scenario. Lippert has made getting a replacement and or potentially even custom axle solution easier via an online portal. Like normally, if like even us as a dealership, if we have to get a replacement axle situation for you to try to get parts quotes and costs and stuff in that, it is far more timely than it needs to be. And it's another one of those things that when you need RV repairs, just adds so much unnecessary time to the repair event cycle. And having this online portal basically allows you to get quotes on something in practically real time for both spring and torsion axle systems, and where, you know, they have some out-of-the-box solutions, but potentially, depending on what you're looking for, some custom build-your-own kind of things are available, kind of like Subway. Subway has standard sandwiches, and then they have you can build your own kind of sub thing. Lippert's kind of doing Subway for axles. I don't think that their marketing team would appreciate it that I phrase it that way, but yeah, kind of that. But the idea being to drastically cut down on the amount of time that either you on your own, for whatever reason, or a dealership fulfilling this for you could get you back up and running and actually have a better idea of what that thing's going to cost. I'm glad to see that. That's a potentially major time savings in RV repair right there that's happening. And another one of those little consumer warning things. This is just a good practice, but keep an eye on the bills that you get from like your insurance company, your cell phone company, or whatever. Keep an eye on what happens sometimes with these surcharges, because an example of this recently here came down from Geico, although they're not the only time that this could come from. Basically, Geico had a policy called their accident forgiveness policy, where if you've been insured by Geico for 5+ years, you had a clean driving record, they would not increase your rates for your first at-fault accident. But it turns out that was happening indirectly. Instead of actually seeing your insurance premiums go up, what they were doing is they were tacking on the increase to your insurance premiums as a surcharge. So they're saying, oh no, your rates didn't go up. We promised we didn't do that. This is just a surcharge that you have to incur now because of your accident. Well, what's the difference here? Well, a court of law said there is no difference, at least in the state of Texas. Now, insurance from state to state does vary, but it looks like in the state of Texas, this practice is going to get slapped very, very quickly. And knowing what I know about how things work, if it happens in one state, more than likely they will start adopting a more consistent nationwide policy. So again, whether it's insurance, auto insurance, home insurance, whether it's cell phones, if you start to see a lot of these like surcharges and stuff, call your company and ask them about this stuff. You might be surprised what you've been paying, and the fact that if you ask them and call them on it, they magically sometimes just quit doing it. So who knows, that could save you a couple grand every year. And finally here, my last little thing, actually, Just a question. This is just an ask the audience situation right here. How would you like to see AI systems implemented to benefit camping RV enthusiasts? Because it seems like they're just smashing everything into AI nowadays. I'm surprised we don't have AI-based shoelaces, although I'm sure you give Nike and Adidas a chance and they're going to find a way to make that happen. But you know, like I don't want AI to come up with some algorithm to make me want to buy the next cheeseburger. Like I like when AI helps identify, like, hey, they were able to help this lady identify she was probably going to have breast cancer the next 2 years and get treatment before it got out of control. Like that's the kind of AI that I want to see in the world. But you know, this recreational fun time thing that we do, how would you like to see that implemented? Like trip planning, route planning, maybe even helping you identify an RV that kind of fits your criteria, like an AI shopping tool, even though I just said I don't like that stuff. I'm just trying to think, like, what could benefit you and what would you like to see? And I'm not saying we're building any of this. I'll tell you we're not. I'm just curious myself. And that's what I got for you this month. Now I'll tell you, I had to record this about 10 days earlier than I normally do, so there's very possible there's some tidbits that came out late last month that I will have missed. I might be able to roll some of those over, so don't be surprised if the next industry update runs a little bit longer. Not that any of these have a way of ever running short. If you appreciate how we dig through the catalogs of all the RV news stuff out there to try to keep you in the know as to what's happening and what's coming down the line, hit that subscribe button if you're new with us. Like our video if you've returned to help spread that message out there. And as long as you keep wanting to hear about it, we'll keep trying to put this stuff out. So until next time, thanks again for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, have fun, happy camping, everyone.